Hello, friends, and welcome back. And I wanted to let you know that there is a reason this is called the Bear Games channel, and that is because I have an intense passion for board games. I grew up playing board games, and then you were just a nerd, and it was kind of looked down upon. Now, today, it is a completely different landscape, and board gaming has become an enormous and profitable industry. Now, as you can see, I certainly have a few board games, and actually, once upon a time, this might have been an extremely impressive wall of games to own. However, nowadays, with as many wonderful games that come out, this is really kind of a dated collection. But today I want to talk about three board games in particular. Now, these are games that really impacted my life and pretty much cemented my love of this particular hobby. So stick around with me, and I'm going to cover three board games that impacted my life. My first game is Hero Quest and Advanced Hero Quest. These were published by Milton Bradley and Games Workshop in 1989. Now, what these games did was simulate a role-playing game experience. Now, I had been playing role-playing games well before this. However, these games provided a way to more simply scratch that role-playing game itch for my friends and I. Now, Hero Quest was simply filled with so many amazing parts. It had a full-colored board map for you. It had figurines of all kinds of different monsters as well as your heroes. It had literal furniture that you could set up in the rooms that your heroes would be able to encounter, as well as the heroes themselves, all kinds of cards for spells and monster statistics, and even a game master's board that the game master would play behind. Now, role-playing games that we played at the time, like Dungeons and Dragons, Chill, and Gamma World, were great, but they required a lot of character creation and setup, something that was extremely time-consuming to do. While Hero Quest had simple, already made characters and heroes, which allowed for a much more immediate play. Now, much like a traditional role-playing game, Hero Quest required that one of the players take the place as the game master, the person who set up the entire map and board, and also played all of the villains and monsters that the heroes would encounter during the game. But the company produced many adventures with full maps and villain statistics, which made even this part of the process much quicker. Now, we played Hero Quest for many months before Advanced Hero Quest was available to me because it went out of print almost immediately after production. However, Advanced Hero Quest had one very specific improvement that I wanted to have for my games. That was, instead of a regular board, they actually created a plethora of tiles which you used to lay down and build the map as you went along, allowing for infinite variability in the map itself. I'll tell you, I really wanted some of these tiles for my own game, but since the game wasn't available, what I did was write to the company and ask if there was some way for me to just purchase the tiles alone. And much to my surprise, weeks later, a free set of those tiles just arrived in the mail for me. I mean, that really impressed me about this company. And I still use those tiles even today in numerous of the role-playing games that I run, even 30 years later. Now, since its release, many games have copied Hero Quest's model of tiles, pre-generated characters, and pre-written adventures. And on the whole, they have improved upon its model. Games such as Descent, and Gloomhaven, for instance, have vastly made that type of game much more enjoyable. And in fact, in 2021, Hasbro kickstarted a new version of the original Hero Quest game, which is currently available to buy online. However, you will pay a lot more than the original $30 I did in 1989. I have to say that both of these games stoked the fires of both the role-playing game and board game interest for me, something that you can obviously tell I'm still very much passionate about today. The next game is The Dark Tower, made by Milton Bradley in 1981, over 40 years ago. It is a fantasy board game wherein each of the players must travel through 4 different lands, encountering tombs and ruins which they can search for treasure, or traveling to the bazaar where they can buy additional soldiers and items to help on their quest. But this had something unique. The Dark Tower. The tower sat in the middle of the board, and it loomed over everything. And it was, for 1981, simply an electrical marvel. Long before personal computers and tablets and smartphones, Milton Bradley had created the first electronic dungeon master. The tower, through a series of still images, would show you what you encountered and whether or not you found treasure, or if you ended up battling something, how well that battle went. The tower made some great sounds too, such as when you were entering a tomb, or fighting brigands, or when you had the dreaded dragon attack. You could even enter the bazaar where you would be able to buy new warriors, food for your warriors, a beast of burden, a scout to help you not get lost, and a healer if you get plagued. You could even haggle with the shopkeeper, trying to get the price down to cheaper. However, if you piss him off, he's going to close the bazaar. The idea was to travel the 4 lands and find 3 magical keys. The keys would unlock the tower so that you could go inside. Once you have all 3 keys, you can try to enter the tower. Now, with only 3 keys, it really wasn't that difficult to figure out the riddle of the keys. At most, it was going to take probably 3 tries. However, it was delaying you, which was giving your opponents a chance to catch up, and they might be trying to get into the tower on their turns as well. If you succeeded, then you made your way into the tower and had an epic battle with the brigands inside. However, if you failed, the tower would simply kick you out, and you would have to try again on your next turn. Now, my friends and I, we played the hell out of this game, and it really is the game, I think, that got me into board gaming in general. Now, the original Dark Tower, of course, has not been printed for 4 decades, so it can probably still be obtained online through game selling sites. However, it's going to be extremely expensive if the tower even works. That being said, There is a more recent version of the game called Return to Dark Tower. It is a really good fantasy board game. However, I don't really think that it's deserving of the Dark Tower name, mostly because the tower in this version really doesn't do much. You don't interact with it at all, and at most what it does is a few minor things to hinder your progress. It's a very app driven game, and anything that the tower did in this game could easily have been done by the app instead. So really, I call it just a very large paperweight on the board. However, it is quite impressive. It does have some lights that light up, and it does make sounds if you program it to. However, as good of a game as I think it just isn't the Dark Tower to me. And there you have it. That was The Dark Tower by Milton Bradley. Now I want to tell you about another game that came out by Milton Bradley on the very same year. Lastly, a card game called Dragon Master, also by Milton Bradley in 1981. Now, this is a trick-taking game where each player has a chance to be in control and try to manipulate the other players into taking very specific cards at very specific times, and force them to pay for them in gems. For those of you unfamiliar with trick-taking card games, it's a very popular mechanic in a lot of games such as Bridge or Hearts or Spades. Dragon Master has 4 suits of cards, much like Hearts or Clubs in a normal deck, ranging from Fool to King and with the entire royal family represented. Each round, a card is played, and then every other player must also play a card of the same suit. From there, once everybody has played, whoever plays the card that is highest in that suit wins them all. At that point, they take them, and that is called taking a trick. Now, in some card games, that is a good thing. However, in Dragon Master, it is a very bad thing. It also has these delightful gems, which you use as currency during the game, representing diamonds, rubies, emeralds, and sapphires. In the game, each player takes turns being the Dragon Master and playing through a very specific set of rounds. The Dragon Master's objective is to make other players take tricks that contain specific cards in the suits, for which they will have to pay the Dragon Master with gems. The hands each have unique challenges, such as try not to take any of the wizards. Try not to take either the first or last trick. Or simply, try not to take the Prince of Warriors, culminating in the complex Staff of Power hand, which combines all the other hands in one. Once each player has had the opportunity to be the Dragon Master, it's determined who amassed the most amount of money in gems, and they are declared the winner. The artwork is very evocative, with each of the characters having striking personalities, including my favorite, Piffle. You could almost imagine the story that each of these have simply from their images alone. In fact, the rulebook contains a detailed short story that introduces many of these characters and the intrigues that go on between the families. Now, obviously, not everyone who played the game was going to take the time to read that story, but I did, and it really scratched my fantasy itch in a time when there weren't a lot of good TV or movies that had that fantasy theme, and it just seemed to make the game all that much more charming. Now, Dragon Master is based on an ancient card game called Coup d'etat. And Dragon Master has unfortunately long since gone out of print. However, it can still be purchased through online sales such as Amazon.com or eBay. However, you will pay some money for it. There is a more recent version that has become available. It's called Indulgence, and it's made by Restoration Games. It differs from Dragon Master in a number of different ways, but it does seem to evoke that similar fantasy ambiance. However, it in no way matches up to the charm of the original game. And that was Dragon Master by Milton Bradley, and my friends and I, we played this game just about every week for many years, and it really, really did help cement my personal love of playing board games. And there you have it, 3 board games that seriously impacted my life and started an entire new hobby obsession for me. I hope they sounded interesting to you and maybe made you want to go out and pick up a new board game and give it a try. So thanks so much for listening. I'd appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, of course. That's always helpful. And otherwise, have a very good day.